This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
All right. How you feeling, baby? You feeling good?
Always good. Oh, how are you?
Very good. I'm going to test you now because, Bitcoin's at 76,064. Okay.
All right.
But, we've been trying to see if it goes to 70. Us greedy bastards. Once we hit 77, will it go to 78 and 80? When was it going to hit that? When's it going to hit 90? When's it going to go to 100? Because it's going to get there, but it's just one of those things. But you know how it is. When you come on, there seems to be a pump. So I pulled up the Bitcoin chart now, see where it's at, and we've been wanting to, it's been fiddling around 76 the last couple of days, and so 76, like 7, 6, something like that is like the height. We haven't hit 77 yet. That's the next stage. So I'm figuring with you.
Yes.
We'll hit 77 by the end of this interview here. You know what I'm saying?
That's what I'm here to do, brother. I'm here to raise this.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. What can you tell us about Georgia Tech? What do we expect from the Ramblin' Wreck?
Well, it looks like Haynes King is probably going to come back and start in this game for Georgia Tech, which means that they're a different team with them. If you watch them in their last two games, which was a loss to Notre Dame and at Virginia Tech, they didn't score a lot of points. And the reality is their backup quarterback isn't as good as Haynes King. Usually the case with every team, right? Oh, the backup never as good as the starter. So they're going to be better. He is a mobile quarterback, a guy who can.
In the case of the Dolphins, the backup doesn't even belong in the goddamn league. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So they are 5-4. Brent Key, I think, does a really good job for what he has. If you look at Georgia Tech on the surface and how they have to recruit, because they are an academic institution, it's sort of like some of these other schools. They can't get certain players into their school. It's just the way it is. They're never going to have the athletes necessarily that some of the other elite programs do in college football. But Brent Key's an offensive lineman, former offensive lineman, offensive line coach. Like Mario wants to get bigger and badder up front, and they are better on the defensive side of the ball than they were a year ago. They were one of the worst defenses in the country last year. So he made some good changes. They're a better defense than they were last year, and their offense is potent when Haynes King is healthy. So I think it's a formidable challenge. This isn't the toughest team Miami will face on their schedule all season, but I would say they're probably top 5.
You said something that in our last one when we were talking about Manny. And you just mentioned it now about the challenges of coaching at Georgia Tech, that, you actually have to hit the books at Georgia Tech. Mm-hmm. And so when you look at what goes on with Manny, you say, well, I could see him staying there forever at Duke. But if you're Manny Diaz, why stay forever at Duke? Why not try to go to a South Florida, a Central Florida, a program where the academic standards aren't nearly like they are at Duke and Georgia Tech and Vanderbilt and Stanford and shit, that it's so hard to find really, really smart football players like that they're not that they're just football smart, but they're also book smart, man. That's really difficult. So why would a guy, just an off the beaten question there, to go off of what you said, if I'm Manny Diaz and I prove myself at Duke, why don't I want to go at least somewhere else where maybe, again, they'll be happy with a decent record, not necessarily you got to go to a program that you got to be trying to, challenge for a national championship?
It's a really interesting question and a really interesting topic, because I think everybody just always assumes that every coach does this, wants to win a national championship, right? I'm in this to get to the school that can pay me the most money and where I can win, right? I think, when you play in a sport that has 134 FBS programs, let's not forget how big the field is now, right? And you've got, 60, close to 70 Power 4 programs. Those are a lot of jobs and a lot of opportunities. And ultimately, we know this, we've followed this sport long enough. There's really only 5 or 6 teams every year that have a chance of winning the national championship. I know the playoff has expanded to 12 teams. I know more people are going to technically get in. But the reality is there's only a few teams that can win the championship. And so I think for guys like Manny Diaz who do this because they love to coach defense, because they love to, they just love football, they love being around this. You want to be in a situation that's stable. And going to a program like Duke or like Kentucky, like Mark Stoops has done, where he's been there for a long time, you get an opportunity to do what you love to do and make good money doing it. And you coach at the Power 4 level. So while I think some guys certainly are hungry for more, I think other times coaches can get into a state of affairs where, hey, you know what? I got a good job. I got a good situation. Yeah, I'm winning championships, but I'm doing what I love, and I'm getting an opportunity to win. I'm not at a bad program. I'm not dealing with angry fans. I'm not dealing with, So I think you have to think that not everybody's the same, and people look at jobs and opportunities differently.
Yeah, Cutcliffe was there for a long, long time.
Yep.
And he had already gone through the ringer, winning it as an OC under this guy Tennessee, Fulmer.
Right.
And when Fulmer won it with T. Martin,
Mm-hmm.
quarterback, right after
Peyton. Yeah.
Yeah. So he already had that taste, and then he went to Duke, and he was happy there for a long time. And he got to develop some decent quarterbacks there at the college level. Almost everybody would look at their college quarterbacks and say, well, they're being coached well and that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? So
there's a different level of pressure,
it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot. Peace of mind makes
stability. Stability,
yeah.
Peace of mind. I don't need to move my family. When you're coaching in the NFL, you are under the pressure to win all the time. You don't make the playoffs. I mean, it's a different job. In college, like I said, there's 134 of those jobs now, brother. There's 134 of them. You got 32 in the NFL. It's a different monster.
Yeah. No, that makes a ton of sense. Injury-wise, how are the Canes doing this week?
Yeah, well, they're without Jadis Richard, which is a big loss for them because he was their starting cornerback. For the last 6 games, he's a big physical guy on the outside. He'd been playing pretty well. Had a few decent plays. So now you're down to six healthy DBs who play a lot. And you're hoping that Damari Brown comes back. I know Mario's been hinting at it for a while, but I think ultimately. That's a thing. We'll see it. I'll believe it when I see it, right? When he's out there again playing, because he was a guy who hurt his groin last year, played through the pain, tried to come back for the start of camp, opened the season, at Florida, and then kind of re-injured himself. So once you're damaged goods or dealing with something like that, it's very hard to just get healthy and get back on the field. So we'll see if he can, but that would be a big addition for them. And I think Elijah Alston has probably missed the last couple games, has been banged up. He's kind of a depth piece as far as rushing the passer, but I don't worry about that, because they've got young guys that they can bring in there to rush, pass rush the quarterback for 15 to 20 snaps a game. So they're talented and deep at that spot.
Yeah, and you're facing a much better passing game in Georgia Tech than their prior history under Johnson.
Yeah.
But you're still not facing, this incredible scaring passing attack. So even if you're without the corner, the pass rush you have should be able to, not really expose the secondary that badly. Put it that way.
Yeah, I think, Georgia Tech is at their best when they run the football.
Yeah.
And so that's going to be priority number one. It's slow down Jamal Haynes, slow down Haynes King. Don't allow them to extend drives. If I'm coaching against Miami this week, that's what I'm trying to do. I want long offensive drives so that I don't have to have Cam Ward out there for 12, 13 possessions. I only want him on the field for 8 or 9. So, which is what Florida State essentially tried to do.
1 or 2 plays to score, bro. So that's on the field.
That's what you're hoping for. I mean, the ridiculous 3rd down conversion percentage for Miami this season. So if you're Georgia Tech, you're trying to slow the game down and run the football and score as many touchdowns as you can so that you can just keep pace with this team.
Is he the Heisman favorite?
Right now he is, according to Vegas. I think he is. I think he's the best player in college football. I think he's the most valuable player in college football in terms of what he means to his team. But the problem is there is voter fatigue, and that is a very real thing. And I think the voter fatigue is, why do we give it to a quarterback every single year? And so this year you have Travis Hunter, who is doing things that very few people have done. Let's face it. To start on both sides of the football and play 130 snaps a game, and to
But
be
if
good.
Cam runs the table and he goes undefeated and wins his conference, because it's not so much going undefeated with this schedule, because the schedule is not impressive. I get it. But if you cap it off with Clemson, I don't know how you don't give it to him, because he's so exciting. And listen, I'm a Colorado supporter. I'm a Colorado supporter of Dion. I'm not one of those haters. In fact, I love going after the Dion haters. But they're going to lose another game or two. And I'm just saying, this guy's, you just said it, he's the most important player to a team. And if that team goes undefeated and beats Clemson and wins the ACC, you're accomplishing a lot for a program that has never accomplished that. And so
I agree.
that's, oh man, I would give it to him. But I get the fatigue thing, but man, undefeated.
Wow. Yeah, I think any other year, I would say it's a slam dunk that Cam Ward is going to win the Heisman, because there's no Travis Hunter to compete with, right? His competition would be a running back, Ashton Johnson out of Boise State, who's special, but he's not that special. He is not the greatest running back I've ever seen. So I agree with you. I think that the issue here is Colorado is 6-2 right now. Colorado has a chance to reach the Big 12 championship game. And if they do that, brother, if Colorado wins their last 4 games.
Stage. Yeah. Same thing. Stage.
Yeah.
He's taking them to a stage they've never been, like Cam Ward. The Canes have never won the ACC. You know what I mean? That would be amazing they beat Clemson and win the ACC championship game. These are things that they have been wanting to accomplish since they got into this conference. That would be a double whammy. But again, if Travis Hunter gets to the Big 12, he's doing the same thing for them. Even though Shedeur is obviously also the reason why.
Well, let me give Miami fans who just scoff at Travis Hunter and say, "Oh, he's not doing anything." He is the 11th leading receiver in yards per game in college football. Xavier Restrepo was 10th. So imagine Xavier Restrepo doing what he does on offense, right? Which is lead his team in receiving, score a bunch of touchdowns, catch a bunch of balls, and then go on the other side of the football and start and cover the other team's best wide receiver and slow him down every single game.
It's ridiculous.
Puts you in a different perspective, right? When I tell you to think of what that is. So it's not like Cam would lose to anybody who's unworthy. I think Travis Hunter is very worthy as well.
Right. Yeah.
So it'll be interesting finish, but I know Miami fans want to see Cam Ward win it. And like I said, I think any other year, if he doesn't have Travis Hunter, he is a shoo-in to win it. But it's a different.
Yeah, it makes a lot. The Big 12 stuff that you mentioned, that would be what gives them the edge. But man, God, if UM run, they have to run the table. If he loses any of these games, he's out, because it's just not a great schedule. But if he runs the table and then beats Clemson, it kind of proves that the schedule doesn't mean shit. UM is actually really, really good. It's just they were stuck with a mediocre schedule. And when they had an elite team come up in Clemson, they beat them. And then obviously the playoffs won't count for the Heisman, but we'll see later on what they do with, in the playoffs. Speaking of the playoffs, I know it's bullshit. It's just the first poll, but what did you think of them getting the 4th spot?
Well, I could totally see it happening, because knowing the people who are involved in the selection process and what they weigh and how the Big Ten and SEC are so ridiculously favored, right? Because of history, not because of what they're doing right now. It didn't surprise me one bit. Miami has the number 1 offense in the country, which is going to help their cause. BYU, who is undefeated and leading the Big 12, does not have the number 1 offense in the country, and they struggle to win some games. So it's a different animal with why Miami gets respect over BYU. But I'm going to say this, though. I think people need to stop showing the SEC and the Big Ten the amount of respect that they get, because I think college football has changed drastically because of the transfer portal. I don't think you have the super team anymore in college football. The Georgias, the Alabamas, the Ohio States still have more talent than everybody else, but it's not overwhelmingly more talent than everybody else anymore. So I think, for people to sit here and just say, well, the SEC and Big Ten deserve the benefit of the doubt. I completely disagree. And I think you just got to look at the results. Look at Georgia's struggles this year with a Florida team, with Kentucky. Look at Oregon struggling to beat Idaho at home by 10 points and only beating Boise State by 3. They're not head and shoulders above everybody else, but yet we're still living in this era where everybody just gives them the benefit of the doubt. And I think that's wrong. I think we have entered a different era. And hopefully in the next few years, that point comes true and people see that, hey, it's not just because of what conference you play in. The transfer portal has changed that all.
By the way, what'd you think of Florida coming out saying, yeah, Napier will be here next year?
Well, I think not surprising because the athletic director is still there. If Scott Strickland had been fired, if Florida had a new president in charge, this wouldn't be surprising. But Scott Strickland hired Billy Napier. This is his 4th head coach. For him to fire him is basically admitting defeat, right? And hey, I crapped the bed yet again with a coaching hire. So the next president comes in and says, well, we got to get rid of this athletic director. He's terrible. That might happen anyway. But I'm just telling you, the only reason that happened is because the athletic director is still in charge and the school doesn't have a president yet.
15-18 as a coach. And there's $26.7 million still left on the table after this season.
Listen, I'm going to ask you this. I'm going to flip it to you. Which situation is worse right now, Florida State or Florida? They're both really bad, aren't they?
Yeah. The only thing, you're in the SEC, so your climb out of it is a lot harder. Whereas in the ACC, you saw it last year. They got the right transfer portal guys, and they went and turned it around. Look at what is doing right now. They're turning it around easily. So I would say Florida is the harder one because you're up against so many good programs there. And if you keep proving this way, you're just going to lose people. By the way, the Lagway kid, how serious is the injury?
Well, they were saying, I think Napier mentioned this week that there's a chance he could come back and play. I don't see how when you get carted off with a hamstring, but we will see. We will see. Everybody lies nowadays when it comes to these injury reports, right? They don't want to give any real information on anything. But look, it didn't look good to me. I'd be very surprised if Lagway was available in this game.
Yeah. That to me, I don't know. Getting out of the hole of the SEC is worse. ACC, you can get out of. So that would be, I would say the Florida
that FSU recruiting class has completely gone to crap. They're 1-8.
Sure. But Florida's recruiting is going to go to crap too, and kids are going to transfer if this continues too. It's the same shit.
Right. All I know is there's never been a better time to be Mario Cristobal right now because your two biggest competitors in this state, and I know, listen, no disrespect to USF and UCF and all the other Fs in the state of Florida, but if Miami gets this thing rolling, brother,
it's over.
It's over. It'll be a fast moving express train down the tracks.
It's over because they're the only ones that look like they've got their shit together, whereas everywhere else it just doesn't look that way. You know what I'm saying? And
for sure,
the optics says it all right now. Where the UM thing is trending upwards, whereas FSU and Florida are trending downwards. So if you're a recruit, you got to be looking at Miami, right now as the edge. So that's it's impressive. It's impressive. I hope they're able to continue to build on this because if they can do that, man, you're right. It's going to get rolling and it's going to be a lot of fun. All right, what do you got going on in The Athletic so folks can check you out?
Yeah, they can tune into my latest podcast, the Wide Right Podcast. It came out earlier this week on Wednesday, so you can download it there wherever you download your pods. You can also read my latest stories. Did ACC Power Rankings again today with Grace Rayner. Gave some perspective on Miami's race with SMU to get to Charlotte, which I think SMU actually has an easier path than Miami does. Miami has to play 2 road games against decent teams, Georgia Tech and Syracuse. It looks like basically SMU's got to beat 3 4-win teams that are at 500. So a little easier path for Rhett Lashley's guys. So you can read that. You can read my oddly specific predictions. And then I'm going to have some stories next week. I'm actually writing something on the Gators for next week with the decision to keep the coach and what that means for recruiting.
All right. Follow him on Twitter at Manny_Navarro. Manny, as always, thank you, my brother. We will catch up next week. Enjoy the game.
You too, man. Take care.
There you go. The great Manny Navarro and our Caneswear Miami Hurricanes report. Go see Brett and Jeff and John and Ken and all the amazing people out there at Caneswear. Use our code BIG010. You will get 10% off at caneswear.com or in person. And if you order online, if you order over $99, you will get free shipping. So you can get the free shipping, plus you can get 10% off. Check it out, caneswear.com.
This is the Big O Show. This is the